Right, computer. All right, it's all yours.
All right, everyone. So if you load up the file that you got from Spring Initializer, this is what you should have. If you double click on the whatever's inside, so it would look like this. You open up your source folder, go to main, Java, whatever you named your project, and this file right here. Double click that. We're not going to do anything with this, but just to prove that it exists. This is like the main application. Does anyone need help getting here? All right. If not, the next step we're going to do is just create a routes folder package. Probably should name it route. I don't like using the plural, but whatever you want to call it. And inside there, we're going to create a class. We'll call it get test. Give you a second. And feel free to shout out if you have any problems whatsoever. I will post a GitHub repo with all this at the end of class. But I think it's something we could all follow along with. So let me know if you have problems. We'll resolve them. All right. If no questions, we'll do our first step here and name this class, annotate it rather, REST controller. If it doesn't pop up for you, something may be going wrong, but it should pop up for you, REST controller from the Spring Framework package. All right. And that's our first step. Okay. We'll go inside the class now. And we'll create a method. A public method that returns a string and call it test. Take no parameters for now. We're going to return a string of your choice. We're not done quite yet, but almost there for our first little get route. Okay. After you've created that method, you're going to want to annotate this method with something called get mapping. Right. Now, we could put nothing here, and I'm pretty sure it would work, but I like to name the routes. And we could name it that for just the base route, but go ahead and call it test. Okay. And this is where we should all be to test it. Anyone need help? Any questions? If not, we'll go back to that file, your application file. And you have to press the play button, for me anyway. I don't know how you might start it in other IDEs, maybe a little different, but figure out how to start it. It's going to take a moment to build. And let's see. Okay, good. Now it should go right to 8080. So we're on port 8080. It's probably the same on your machine, but check the logs of your Spring startup. Just if we try this and it doesn't work. So Go over to your Postman or whatever you have. I have insomnia. Well, not really, but I have. Oh, great. Not responding, force quit. I knew this might be an issue.
No matter how much you plan, someone can always decide to show its ugly head.
Yeah,
I like insomnia. It just works. I just like how it is.
I do too.
Hmm.
I do too. All right, so we'll start from scratch
It's a
here.
replacement for Postman, huh?
Yeah, because I got frustrated with Postman, and it's been trying this out. It's a little better, only marginally.
I technically only use Postman myself just because I'm familiar with it. I'm definitely open to trying a new one. I'm gonna give this one a shot.
I like
Yeah.
Postman. I tried it, but I find insomnia a little easier to use than Postman at times.
Yeah,
It seems cleaner. Sometimes there's not
Yeah, a
much
little
going
bit.
on.
yeah. So whatever you have to do to create a new request, make sure it's a GET request, and go to it. And once you're there, we're going to want to send our request to localhost, which is I always forget. Oh, here, good. It's 8080 for me. And we did name our route test. So if you named it the same thing, it should probably look like this. And let's see. This works. We're computer engineers.
Mm,
But yeah. And so if you made it that far, congratulations. That's a Spring route, a GET route, a simple one. And we're going to do much more tricks later on, but this is a great starting point for everyone. So if you have any problems at all, let me know. I'd really like to get everybody up here, up to this point.
Yeah, if anyone needs more time, just speak up, say a couple seconds. That's all.
Okay. Okay. So now we're gonna do in the same fashion, create a new class called post test. We're not done with our GET route, but we're gonna take a detour for a second. We're gonna follow similar steps. Annotate the entire class with REST controller. We're going to create another public method that returns. Let's have it return a string for now. I'll test again. And we'll do the same thing. Annotate it with not get mapping this time, but post mapping. And we'll be brazen and call it the same thing. It should go to this one because it's a post request, right? Not a GET request. So it should know that even though they have the same path name, that it's going to return this string. Again, this works. Whatever you want to do it, name it some, return something different so that you know the distinction is there. All right, so we'll go back over to our HTTP client or whatever you call this thing. Add a new request and call it the same thing, but just make sure it's a post route this time. No body. We are going to have a body. Put JSON in there for future. Okay. I know I'm going a little fast, but just setting it up like we did the other one. All right, so that's a post request to the same address. Oh, call test. Nothing in the body for now, but it should. Oh, I forgot. I'll probably make this mistake in the future. We have to restart it to log the changes. I don't know how long this is going to take on your machine. I hope it doesn't take too long to rebuild it. There is a dependency that you can use to watch for changes and load them, but I didn't want to go through all that. You should only have to restart it 3 or 4 more times. So, okay. That only took 5 seconds. So, or a little more, but anyway, let's test it. So we're testing the post route this time. Same path, nothing in there. Okay, we hit the post route as a response. I'm gonna hang on for just 30 seconds. Feel free to ask me a question. Okay, let's see here. Now, the next thing I wanted to do with you all is grab the body from a
Hey
post
John, can you hold
request.
it there for a second? Because like I'm trying to keep up with you, man. You just went a little too fast.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. I'm glad you said something. And just to show you, the get and the post at this point look pretty much the same. The only difference being that we have post mapping and get mapping annotation.
All right, I'm caught up now. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Anytime anybody needs a few extra seconds, let me know. Yeah, because I did this all earlier today. And I ran into all the hiccups and it took me quite a while. So, you know, this is the second time around, so I could go a little fast sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely want to give John a shout out for appreciation that he jumped in last minute. So thanks again.
Yeah, that too. So, okay. Now let's see. We're gonna use an annotation called request buddy. Put that in there. Okay. So we're gonna request the request body. And what are we gonna pull out of it? Right now, we're just gonna pull out a string. And we'll just put our like name in there or something. Okay. Just like that. Request body annotation. This should be familiar to you all, how you name your parameters. Typically, the only difference being that we have an annotation now for Spring that says grab the request body. And we'll change the return to say this hello from, and put the name. So it'll take our name parameter from the request body and attach it to the string here and return it. Okay. Hang on that for a sec. I'll go ahead and start making the body here. Your regular JSON body, we have to name it the same thing. I'll show you how you can do different names in the future, but for now it's just going to be the same thing. We name the parameter name. Okay, and if everything, oh, rebuild, I forgot. Stop and rerun to rebuild it. to reflect the changes.
It's the dev tools that will reboot, will rerun your server all the time after you make a change.
Oh, yeah, we should have had that one too then.
That's okay.
I'll try that in the future. All right, so after you rebuild it, with this in there, what should happen when you hit that post route with this, don't forget to make that your body. Okay, that didn't get that that didn't quite go as planned. Did you see what happened there? Look at this
I mean, it looks
weird.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks pretty
It
cool.
looks pretty cool.
Yeah, you get your Jason response.
Right.
Kind of.
the
It's not a
whole-
JSON response. Hold on. It's
Oh,
not a
is it?
JSON response. That is still text response. But note how, so we see what it actually did. So it pulled in the body as a literal.
Yeah.
So it didn't actually parse the
Didn't
JSON
parse.
into a JSON, into some sort of JSONifiable object for your Spring Boot. So that's probably the next thing you need to do is how do I then convert? So now I know how to get the body. Well, how do I get that body and convert it into something that is objectionable or object like, which is either creating a class for it or creating a dictionary for it, or one of those. There's a bunch of options. I'll let John, I don't know if John has a plan, but yeah. So just definitely notice that is just is doing string literal. Note that the new lines are the same, the spacing's the same. If you were to add a spacing, if you were to get rid of the new lines on that on the body and just do a one-liner, like on the post body there, John, on the left side, put all that on one line. Yeah. And now send it again. No,
Yep.
see, it's a string literal. So it's not bringing it in as JSON. It's not responding as JSON. It's bringing it in as a string and reading those as string items and printing it out exactly as it got it.
Hmm.
So we'll
the path variable to make it work right.
not a path variable yet. We're going to work with path variables later, but what we might be able to do this. This might parse it for us. Or not.
I believe
No,
you are on the right
okay.
path. I just don't remember the syntax.
Right? Okay, let's see here. There's a
If anyone
different
has
way
seen
that
it, definitely help.
yeah, anybody? Anybody? All right. I did this another way. I thought I was going to be able to show you a quick and easy way, but as with many things in Java, there's no such thing. So what we'll do is go ahead and, I mean, this is something we'll have to do when we make, that wasn't correct. Delete that. So what I'm going to do is create a model package, and we're going to model the body so that we can get things from it easier. We'll call it model. And inside that model, we'll create a class called I don't know. You could be more creative. And this is just going to be a very simple thing. What we'll do is create 3 public fields. You know, first, middle, last, just so we can pull some data from the body. Okay. Just like that, no annotations or anything. So regular old, they call it plain old JavaScript object, POJO. Okay. And we're gonna do all the bells and whistles here. Do a constructor with all the fields in it, and then create getters and setters for all of them. I know that's not very good practice, but
I don't think you need the getters and setters because they're public. You only need the getters and setters if they were private,
okay.
from my understanding.
Okay.
What you can always do is try commenting them out and seeing if they work. If Spring Boot requires them, you can always add them back. But from my understanding, since they are public values, they are not necessary.
All right.
Now, Spring Boot might go through and only have code that requires you to use the get and set commands instead of
Yeah.
using the attribute or the field directly. So it's very possible in the code it's using setters and getters. It doesn't use the field directly, but most likely with something like Spring Boot and something that's been around this long, they have the overloads to work with either or. So if they're public, just use the field directly. If they're not, use the setter and getter.
Okay.
I want
Yeah.
to test it because the cleaner your code, of course, the better.
Yeah. No, certainly. All right, so we're gonna try it without the getters and setters first.
Yeah, 'cause I saw an
And,
example that didn't have them. So I don't think they're needed, but I could be wrong.
All right. And we'll do a little work on this parameter here. So we still need the request body, but instead of a string, we're gonna get the test object. And we're gonna call that the body. And we'll say body dot first. Everybody see how that happened right there? Rebuild. Okay, so I'm ready to go, but I'll come back over here to this test object to show you again. 3 fields and a constructor for those 3 fields. That's what we're working with. The post route that we're going to test, this is the main difference right here. So the parameter is the entire body as modeled by our test object class. Yeah? All right. Let's go ahead and test it. Hopefully we won't get back weird stuff this time. Hello from null. Oh my God. We might need the getters and setters.
Uncomment and see if it fixes it, and that'll give us our answer.
Yeah.
That's to me a little lazy by the developers of Spring Boot, but of the Spring Boot web package, but whatever.
All right, everybody, when you uncomment them, make sure to rebuild. It's the most frustrating, quote unquote, bug when you actually fix something but don't rebuild it. You're just like, why isn't this working?
I ran into that a lot of times before I learned about NodeMon.
Yeah. Okay, so with the getters and setters, so it's not going to work. I know why. Anybody else know why?
Not yet, but can you scroll back up to the top of that file? Sorry.
This one?
Yep.
Because you never set the first name. You never set it.
Let's
That's what I
see.
was
Oh,
told.
yeah, you're right. That's not what I thought it was, but you're right. So it would be this guy over here. That could be why it didn't work without the getters and setters.
I was,
My-
I was
my
just
getters
gonna
and
say
setters
that's why it was because it was the wrong name for the value or for the key.
Yep. Okay,
We might
so
try
let's
turning
go
them off
back.
again.
Yeah, let's do it. So we're turning off the getters and setters. Rebuild. Okay. All right, so that looks correct. Okay, that worked. We don't need the getters and setters. Thank goodness. I mean, you'll see this kind of code a lot. And when I look around, I see the getters and setters a lot, but I feel like that's just
I'm
old
sorry, I'm
habit.
picking up. I don't
A
know.
lot of developers. This way. Say again?
You were breaking up. I don't know if anybody else got that.
Yeah, you were
Oh,
breaking.
okay. I just saying it's cleaner. It's cleaner without the getters and setters, you know.
Nice. Now, yeah, I will clarify again
But,
though. The difference is if your properties are private, you do need getters and setters. Specifically, the getters, and you would definitely need. So you definitely need the getters. You would only need the setters if after you collect the data, you want to change the data. So yeah, this is still an object. What I can clarify that when I looked up on this stuff is the system, the at-risk request header applies the constructor to the object that's given to it, and then the getters and setters are to allow you to is actually for you, not for the response body system. Sorry, the request body system. The request body system doesn't use the getters and setters. Those are meant for you. And again, this is one of those things that I've had a problem with a lot of Java tutorials. They like to showcase getters and setters so people understand them, because the idea of public versus private is something that a lot of tutorials don't like to dig into. They don't want to get into it. They don't want to dig into it. So I get annoyed by that. That's just a personal pet peeve of mine. But yeah, if you have public items, you don't need getters and setters. Even if they're private, the only thing you really need, from my understanding, are getters and setters if the same properties apply. I actually want to do one final test for you. Make those other fields private and create a getter for the first, and use the getter for first and use the getter in your route. Try that for me.
So all of them private, or?
Yep, and then create a getter for the first name, or for first. That's the only one you're collecting right now. Now head to your route and make that, and have it use the getter now.
All right, rebuild it.
One last thing I want to say before we actually send it. I want to see if anyone here has an idea, have a hypothesis of why do I think this might work? Why wait this? And what I can say, it shouldn't take you too long to come up with a hypothesis. But the theory is this line right here. This is running the constructor on line 11. My arrow's not popping up. And the second one's running the get. Take a look. Did you run it?
Yeah, it works.
So you can treat your object like any other object. So don't, I know some lessons can make it seem like you're being restricted. Always be very careful and 100% test things. Run tests, try things, question it, make sure that it makes sense to you on a logical sense standpoint and on a just deductive standpoint. Always feel free to do those things. These are things that I like to do. I think this kind of habit of mine of just trying to be like, do I really need to do it this way, or can I clean it up, and can I do it like this, or is this required? That probably also comes from my tech support background, where my favorite thing to do was to go in a program and try to break them. So I like to do these kind of tests, like, do I really need those to be public? I don't think I do. And do I really need getters and setters? I don't think I do. Let me see if I need them. So that was kind of my personality. So cool.
Cliff,
Yeah.
can I ask one question quick?
Of course.
John, if you hover over first, middle, or last, it'll give like a little pop-up saying like this could be made final. What
Yeah.
does that final just means that it can't be altered? Like
After
the
it's been
data
set
type,
once.
or so the field, the value itself cannot be changed after
Correct.
it's set. Yeah, why would you ever? I guess if you're making like
The reason why
I don't know.
it's saying this here because none of these have a setter. So as soon as the constructor runs, sets the value a single time, you're no longer changing it. So you can technically make these final because you're setting them once and then leaving them, because there's no setter that allows you to change them later on. Go ahead and create a setter for middle for a second. And you should see that requires recommendation for middle. Let's do a setter for middle. And you'll notice that recommendation now goes away because now it can be modified. And so since it can be set once and then modified, we no longer want to make it final. So final in a class says as soon as this is set, it can't be changed. Now, if you set something to final with no starting value, the first time it gets assigned a value, usually the constructor, that then decides its final value.
And you notice the middle got unhighlighted because it could be altered. See how last is like highlighted now because it
Yeah,
could be
the
set.
recommendation is no longer there.
All right.
Last should no longer be made final, because as soon as you make it final, that setter is not going to cause problems, because you're trying to change something that is final. Yeah. That's the one thing that's where I like to make sure I keep everything a little clearer, that final is const, but also not const, because it can be set once, but as soon as it's set, it can't be changed. And this is actually how you could take a variable in a parent class that is normal, but in a child class, make that variable final, and then any child classes of that child class, any third or fourth generation, will always get that final value. So you can actually have a class say that a method or field is final as of me. So we could say, like, just take me for an example. For those who don't know, but most of you probably do know by now, my name is Clifton Rameshonier the fourth. I am the fourth iteration of Clifton Rameshonier. Now I could say that as of now, it's final. There's no more no more doing that anymore. And I can say that any child of mine now no longer continues that process. We're no longer increasing that anymore. We're no longer doing that system anymore. So that's kind of the idea. Every child from my great grandfather said, yep, Clifton Rameshonier, Clifton Rameshonier, Clifton Rameshonier, and then I'm the one that says, puts a final on the name saying, nope, no more Clifton Rameshonier. This is the end.
It doesn't even sound like you're saying real words. You're just making syllables. Come on.
It's a very fresh name. What can I say? I mean, I don't think I've ever heard of anyone else who has the middle name Rameh. So that's a fun one. But I gotta say, I do like the.
As long as the variable is set to final, as long as it's not assigned to something, it's always good. It's an open final until something's assigned. Then it stops. And
Yes,
says,
and that's the thing.
finished,
It's
done.
open final until there's an assignment. Now you can assign it immediately during the declaration, or you can assign it most commonly in the constructor. Cool. That's it. All these extra
I was
things.
gonna,
Go for it.
yeah, I was gonna show a little something with the setter here. Like we could do, I ran this. So, all right, we'll print out. Yeah, I kind of like the getters because I'm gonna go back and give.
All the implementation is done within the method instead of doing anything inside of the mapping, huh? Is that why?
Say again.
Like you can now, are you gonna like ask for the information or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So all the implementation.
I
is
think
done
so.
Inside of here instead of inside the mapping.
I was gonna do.
Method.
I was just gonna print out the just like this. Oh no. Just to print out our full name. But then I was gonna do this thing where we said body set last, because when we send it back, maybe we want to block out the person's last name. So we'll do like this. We'll set the last. Okay. We'll also do one more thing here. Instead of returning a string, we're going to return an object now. Okay. Object is kind of like the catch-all for everything, I've noticed. So if you're ever in doubt, maybe just put object. And we'll return what we were given, except now we set the last to this anonymous last name. All right. So kind of like 4 things there. Change the return type to object, log first, middle, and last name. Set the last to this anonymous thing and return the same thing that we received. Does that make sense to everybody? I'll go ahead and rebuild it. All right. We'll go ahead and fill out the rest of our name. I'll stop impersonating Cliff. And I will be myself. All right. Everybody with me? So right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so what we received back is our anonymized last name. But as you can see, it hit our Spring server that way.
That's a good thing to point out. I don't know if everyone has played around with Express back, or if I know Richard skipped that portion of career devs and jumped right into Java, but when you print out from a method in Java when you're running your server, it's going to print out on your terminal from within the IDE. It's not going to appear in the what we receive from the request or send or anything like that.
Right.
It's just good to point out.
Yeah.
So your set on line 14 overrides your input.
That's right. As far as I can tell.
Hmm.
At least before sending it back. Yeah. Okay. Can you all hear me still?
Yeah.
All right, great. Are we all together? Because I'm going to tick off that box and move on to the header, if it's good with everybody. Was that a question? All right. Again, feel free. You're not going to hold us up. All right, same thing here. We're going to request header now instead of body. Okay. We're going to put a string up there. And we're going to mock up a JWT token. All right. I think this is where I got confused last time. I thought you could do this the same way with the request body. I know you can do it with the header. All right. The JWT typically gets stored in something like this. You could call it whatever. You could put anything in the header and retrieve it by its name like this. This is just telling Spring what to look for in the header. In this case, we're looking for XOF token. Okay. But our parameter name is JWT. So down here, we'll just print it to the console. All right, new parameter annotated with request header named XOF token string. You can name it whatever you want.
Well, your console output output that, but your output in Insomnia was different.
Say again?
Your output in your console down there showed your full name.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you missed this part, Cliff. Jim, line 16.
Yeah, that's when it actually overwrote what you wrote in.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Is that
Is that really how simple it is to throw in an auth token?
Hey, John, when you get a chance, can you put up the post? Because I'm trying to catch up here on the what you're using Insomnia. I'm sorry.
Yep. Yep. So we're still there. Just first, middle, and last.
Yeah, I'm kind of using one screen with split, so if you can make that big, because I didn't see what you typed in.
Let's see here. Is that big? Is that big? Here, we'll try this. It doesn't get any bigger. That's not gonna help.
That's fine. I just want to see what you put in for the post route.
Oh, this one? Oh, what? Ah.
Okay.
All right. So I think I just rebuilt it. Make sure you rebuild it after you have all this stuff in there. All this stuff. This is the new piece we're going to work on, the header. Second parameter. Okay. Let's see. This might be a little bit different depending on what HTTP client you're using. March on over to the header section and name one of your fields in your header the same thing we named it in our Java code. Oh, what happened there? Oh my God.
Delete.
What is all this? What is all this? All right, try that again. And we'll give it. That looks like a JWT token, right? Type in some random stuff. Okay. So now this is gonna get sent along in the HTTP request, just up in the header. All right. So now when we send this, it should print out on our console. Right? There it is. We can do something like this. All right, give it another shot here. Here's our token. That's how you pull something from the header. Simple as that. To me, Spring has just become like annotations. You know, they're little helpers that make all this web stuff a little easier.
All right, can you go back to that insomnia?
Yep.
So you put that in the header?
Yeah, so there's probably a little tab or some kind of window you get to get to the header.
So remove the token and remove the header and run the query again, or run the route again.
Okay. So we'll take that away.
And there you go, bad request, because you didn't get the request. You didn't get the request
Oh, interesting.
because you didn't get the
So,
header
yeah.
token. So it'll like just throw it all off.
Mm-hmm. There are ways to deal with that. Not within the scope of this little lesson, but
it's just showing you that's an error if you don't have that, because when you put it back in, it obviously works because it needs the pass key to go through.
yeah, I'm sure you could do stuff where like if it was missing, you could send back something, you know, that wouldn't make everything crash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you didn't meet.
Good to know.
You just didn't meet the what the method had. You needed a request header and you needed a body to go.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you could set something up, be like, okay, if this is null, then do this. Right? So some alternate behavior. In fact, I think, oh, we're not going to do that. Well, we'll see how much time we have. But any questions about header? If not, we'll move on to path variable. Okay. Again, I'm going to put all this code up on GitHub and share the link. So if you want to review, and Cliff is recording too. But we're going to move back over to the get request when everybody's ready. And we are going to extract a path variable. And it's no big deal. We'll do this. That's the first step. Add this to the end of the path. Hence, its name is path variable. Brackets and the name of whatever you want to do there. All right. As with all Spring things, we're going to annotate path variable. And our ID should be probably an integer. So we'll just call it an int, or you might even want to call it integer. That's the same thing. I think it worked both ways, but it's going to work both ways. And then, so that's underlined red because it doesn't know the name. But if we name it, if we name the parameter the same thing as our path variable, then we don't need to worry about giving it a name like we did in request header. Like sometimes you might see this, and it's unnecessary here because the parameter and the path variable have the same name. Okay. This works, and we'll add, that's not right, the numbers. Okay. So this is what we'll have here. All right. I just did returning a string for demonstration purposes, but I doubt we would ever return a string in real life. So we'll just return an object. All right. Oh, Evan's here. Okay. I'm going to rebuild it. All right. So we'll go back to our HTTP client and go to the get one that we made, the get route, the get request that we made. Okay. And so we'll have to adjust our URL. And so how this works is we add it to the path, put whatever number you like. I'm gonna put 4444, 4 4s. And we send. Everybody see how that works? All right. So path variable is really only two things. She put the name of the variable in brackets at some point in the path. You could even do it something like this. I don't know why you would, but you could do something like that and have the path variable like nested inside of something. Not nested, but yeah, just inside something. Just for demonstration purposes. I think this will work. I should have named it something other than ID so it wouldn't be confusing, but note that this ID is not the variable name, but this ID is because it's inside brackets. So if we send that, it's going to work again. Good. Change the number. Okay, good. So that, yeah, that works. And we'll get rid of the confusing part. Okay. Any questions? Moving right along. You might have more questions after you see this one. So we're going to do path, we're going to do request param now. So we're going to copy that method and do another one here. Just name it test2 and get rid of this path variable here. And we can get rid of everything inside here, start over. We'll get rid of this too for now. It's gonna yell at this. All right. So this time we'll start off with the annotation request param. I'll show you how this is different in a second. Request param. Okay, same. We'll call this int just to add a little variation and prove that they both work. Call it ID again. And this time we'll just return ID. The next leg of this happens inside the path. Well, this is kind of called a query. Right, you'll see with the question mark and equals. I'll go ahead and start doing it so you all aren't wondering for too long. It works like this. Question mark after the path, the question mark, the name. We called it ID. The request param is called ID. You set it equal to something. We'll call it 1, 2, 3, 4. I have to rebuild. Okay, let's see if this works. It does. So yeah, you can see the difference between path variable and request param there. Similar in the sense that the information is held up. What is this? A URL? A path name? Yeah. Anyway, one relies on this kind of syntax with the question mark and the equal sign. But the path variable, you can just stick it in there right like this. See how that works? We'll go back to the request param. Yeah, I did the path variable and request param in the get route because you typically don't use the request body inside a get route, but you can, I think. Yeah. So those four things I posted in Slack: request body, request header, path variable, and request param, like the four ways that you can send information along with your routes. And the other things we learned were REST controller. Don't forget that one. And then the get mapping and the post mapping. And of course, you have your other types of HTTP requests, which are the same. They're made the same way. Put mapping, delete mapping, and you can explore those on your own. That's it. That's the conclusion. We
I
can
like
do a
it.
little more.
Is it me or is this way more simple than Express? Like I feel like Express took forever to understand, and this is like so straightforward.
Oh, good.
What you mean is you didn't know how it worked in Express, but now that you know how routes work, this is easier.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, that makes more
Yeah.
sense actually. Yeah, good point, David.
I would also like to point out for something, go to the get test. You'll probably work in post test as well. But under your REST controller,
Mhm.
put in request at request mapping.
So after it,
Yeah, put at request mapping.
And then you can type in the path in there.
Yeah, you could type in you'll be able to type a path in there, and then that would be your header path. That would be like everything after what your path is will be what your path will full be.
But you have to
Nice.
path.
Oh, that's
equals-
awesome.
Yeah, so you can make like at request mapping / like / API, and then you could say API / like your regular mapping. So if you wanted to make a route mapping, this is how you would do it.
Jim, I thought you had to.
Interesting.
I thought you had to put it like as a variable. Like you would have to write path equals, and then you put the
Yeah, I have one that says API, so you do API / then testing, and then it would do a test.
Let's see. Yeah, they're still working. Yeah, great
Yeah,
tip,
if you
Jim.
wanted to do like if you wanted to start like with API or some other form, you can actually just add the rest of those to that.
Yeah, that would probably be more what you would see, right?
Yeah. And then you could add whatever path you want to add after that, like path, whatever you need to add after those. So you can actually have like 3 deep or 4 deep paths into your
Yeah, it works like a charm.
yeah. So I think you can do this in both post and test or how you want to do it, but I just wanted to point that out, that you can actually make a route, kind of like adjust your route to be a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, I'll leave this. I'm gonna put this up on GitHub and put the link in Slack for anyone who wants to look at it. But that's it. Those are the points that I wanted to cover for sure. And yeah. Any other questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, good job, John.
Thanks. Cliff, you want to show anything else?
Doesn't like
But
doesn't
He
seem
fell
like
asleep
here.
because he's
He
enjoying
fell asleep.
not having to teach. He's like he's relaxed. He's probably knocked out. It's all that staying up till 3 in the morning.
Yeah. What time does class usually end?
we'd probably get off a call up around 8:30. I'd say the
Yeah.
latest would be 8:30, and then it's kind of up to you if you want to go the rest or
Right now.
knock out. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll all
Well,
leave.
there's some.
We'll all leave it in clips like, where is everybody?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe one thing. So just to show you how like versatile this, well, I don't know. I'll let you guys let you all, you know, test it and stuff, but there's so much that can be done beyond this, obviously. But this is, you know, the main things I feel. I mean, the next step is obviously database, right?
Mm.
And I want to get into the next person's presentation. So
Well, I think
Yeah.
I think it's SQL syntax. Is it?
what's the next one? I think I had to close down. Oh, no, it's open still. I had the list up here. So yeah, SQL setup and syntax with Titus. But this the Hibernate stuff, yeah, database. You'll get into that. But
I mean, the only other thing would be under the REST controller, you would do across origins. So if you're doing if you're doing a front end that has a different port, you'd want to cross origins to that port. That would be the only other thing I would think to add in. But
what's the annotation? That's a good one. That's a really good one. Cores.
because you get like a cores error if you're trying to do a React front end with the back end of Java.
Yeah, everybody remember this one. This will save you hours of pain. Cross origin.
And then you can put in parentheses the port number and well, actually you
Like
do
this?
origins equals quote and then the local host or wherever that into the port would be your like HTTP local host colon like 4200 or whatever port you're running your other service in.
Like this, Jim?
When I do React, I do it at 4200, so it'd be like instead of 80, it'd be 4200.
Fine.
So then when React is asking for when they're both communicating, the back end will say, oh, okay, I'm looking for something in the front end at 4200. It could be at 5000, it could be 3000, it could be whatever your front end is running. It's good. You just got to match up those port numbers. I think React runs at 5000, so I think it might be at 5000, but it really depends on what you're running your front end at.
Yeah.
But that would be the only other thing I think I'd add in.
Yeah. Just so everyone knows, this is just so I can show you what it looks like. This has no function here, since we're not violating that internet security protocol.
Hey Jim, where do you go to learn about the annotations of all the different ones?
Actually, from this one with the cross origins, I learned from that React and Java one that Cliff was mentioning. That he says, well, you should only learn the back end, not the front end part of it.
Did he already done that then?
Yeah, the guy showed you how to go into React, change that port setting, and then use to be able to set together. The other one was that Darby one, the one that did Spring React, that 40-hour course. That one goes through all different types of annotations on Spring. It's good to know, even though you may not use half of that course, but it's just nice to know how annotations actually work.
Is it the one that he does on Eclipse?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just nice to know that like how annotations just operate in a general sense. I mean, you may even never use all of them, but it's just like, oh, okay. And then you get into a habit of using the annotations as being a habit or being, in there and like, okay. And you just annotate the technique of typing things out.
Well, to give a more general answer to the question of like, where can I find things about this? One, definitely go to documentation on the package. But two, I did notice there's a site that I end up being directed to a lot whenever I look up Spring Boot stuff, especially the web and even security. it's a weird name. It's Baeldung.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's really
BAELDUNG.
good.
There's a lot of tutorials on it. Every time I search for certain or simple questions on Spring Boot and stuff like that, I tend to go to that site, like how W3 Schools pops up all the time for HTML and CSS stuff and JavaScript things. So that is actually a really nice item, including like even talks a little bit about Spring Security for authentication. So hint, hint, whoever is doing authentication, maybe check that out quick if that might help out a bit. So there's also that. So that's a nice resource for, that one's a resource. But yeah, and the key item there would also just be going to the Spring Boot, the Spring Boot website and looking at the docs under the web section to look at, and they'll explain a lot of the mappings and such.
What was the name? Could you spell it one more time?
Yeah, Baeldung, BAEL, and then dung, like shit.
So the thing about it is, if you type in a lot of that stuff, his site pops up like on the top, like majority of the time. Like when you type in Spring and things like that.
Yeah, it appears to be a very prominent site for learning Spring Boot. It seems to be fairly popular now. So it gets pretty high rankings on Google now.
Also, there's a lot of different ways to do this one, everybody. Like,
I'll even throw it out there, if I
extracting.
remember correctly, you can even do the post and gets in the same class, right?
Yeah, you can.
So you don't
totally
have to.
can.
You don't have to do your posts in one class and your gets in other classes. So that's not required either. So I want to make sure that's clear that it's not required. But again, it's all about making sure. The one thing I want to make sure it's clear though, just follow whatever your standard is. Follow that standard. Show that you're willing to follow standards, whatever they are. If they're your standards, follow them. If they're the company standards, by showing that you follow your own standards, that you do the same thing each time, it shows that once you know the company standards, you'll follow their standards. So if you're doing gets and posts in different classes, do that for all your route directories and stuff like that. Make sure you're being consistent in that. That's the key item. As long as you're doing consistency and you show that you have a process that you follow, it's going to show that you'll be willing to follow the company's policy as long as you showcase that and just explain, oh, no, this is just the way I do it. However you guys organize your stuff, I'll be able to do it that way. That's fine. That's one of the key items.
I generally call like the route controllers because that's the controllers, but
yeah,
you know,
I will say a very common one is the controller system via MVC, because MVC is a very common pattern. You'll tend to put most of your get, post, and stuff under the same controller mapping. So, yep. I had to step away for a quick second. Anything else I missed? Any other questions that I may have missed?
Jim shared about this, a couple more annotations that
Cool.
Were helpful. Yeah.
Which, yeah, like I said, the goal of this is kind of to give you that foundation level. So I'm going to turn my camera on because I think you guys are pretty much done.
Yeah.
But this is just to give you the foundation level. So if you guys have a platform to jump off of and be like, okay, I can build some stuff. And then once I get to a point where like, I don't know how to do this, I know now I can search for that extra bit. Because this is where I used to learn a lot. I would use the Udemy courses to get me to a basis understanding where I can then build enough to break things and build things that at least worked, maybe not great, but worked. And then what I would do then is let my project or let my task that I'm trying to do dictate the next thing I'm going to look up. Oh, hey, I need to upload a avatar photo. Well, let me go figure out how to recognize how Java can handle photo uploads and how can I accept the photo and pass it on to Google or AWS. I'll look into that now. I'm not going to look into it before I need to. If I'm never going to upload files, I don't care how to do it. But the second my project needs it, now I'm going to learn. Oh, I need to do this. Let me look that up. So this is going to help make sure you don't go into what I like to call tutorial hell. You don't watch tutorial after tutorial after tutorial. And then by the time you actually get to your project, you're like, wait, I know I watched how to do this, but I don't remember it. I got to go watch it again now. So what you guys are trying to do here is give yourself the foundational knowledge, a platform to launch your rocket, so to speak, to then play more with these items, to dig deeper into them. So that's what you want to do with these. There's so much more you can dig into with these that, again, no student can do it all in one lesson. Same for me. We could continue, but even think back to the bank account system we were building. There is way more in just pure Java we could spend months working into. So the goal is to give you guys a platform that you guys can set up and then launch off and start running your own test rockets. Think about SpaceX. SpaceX has been in the news a lot. How many times are they launching rockets that end up landing with a crash?
Yeah.
It's happened several times, right? But has Elon or any of the people from SpaceX ever said this was a failure? that was wrong. No, they said they gleaned valuable information out of it, and they know what to do next to have a less likely situation that'll happen. That'll be less likely to happen. That's what you guys are trying to do here. We've built you the platform. Imagine if SpaceX is trying to launch rockets on soft dirt or sand. Do you think they'd ever get anything off? No, right? They have to have a platform, a landing ground or a landing space to start launching rockets. But that doesn't mean it's going to be instantly successful either. But they keep doing it. They launch these things off that have a pretty good chance. They do well, and then maybe they crash, and other times they don't. We know that they've actually had successful launches that have really landed as well. So that's kind of what you guys are going to be able to do now. We've given you that platform so you can now start playing with this system, start launching your rockets till you can be successful yourself. Instead of us sending you out into the desert and be like, hey, go launch rockets in the desert, we're saying, hey, here's a platform, here's a launch pad, start trying to launch rockets there. You have a much better situation now to do it. And that's kind of the goal of these lessons. You guys as the students are learning, how do I set up a platform? And now how do I launch it? So each one of you is learning, how do I set up a platform for others? So each one of you has your own platform, your own rocket platform that you are building, your own landing pad that you're building for everyone else. And then everyone else is sharing their landing platform or their launch platform with you. And so now you're all gonna have all you need to do your testing to learn what you need on the go. And so that's really the focus of these classes, is to get your landing platform so you can now start launching your rockets and learn through trial and error. So like I said, no matter how long we stay here, John probably could go on for another 2 hours on different configurations, different variations, different setups, different annotations, and different ways to handle this over that. But that's not the point. Again, the point is give you the starting, and then now you guys have the knowledge you need to start being dangerous with it, start breaking, but at the same time also start building things. And that's the goal of these. That sound good? That makes sense? Does the analogy work? Is it fun that I asked for something modern like SpaceX? Yay.
Just don't put astronauts in your rockets yet.
Not until it works. Yeah. Yes, you would not use this in any of the stuff you're building right now on your production site. Yes. That's why these are all on your portfolio and all going to be like, these are the things I'm just playing with. Yeah, you partner up with another team that's like, we can make sure your stuff will work before we put people in it. Good answer. Good add-on. Any other questions? Awesome. I'm gonna try to get this video up tonight this time. I know over the weekend I got sidetracked. I got a little distracted from stuff. Christian jumped back in. Did he drop out at some point? Yeah. So I'm going to try to get this video up tonight. Sorry about the weekend. I got sidetracked from some a busy little project we're working on to really kind of, again, help grow Career Dev. So I'm going to try to get this one up tonight for you guys. And any information I'll let you know, but I believe I got to double check with Titus to make sure he's good, but he should be teaching tomorrow. It is SQL. I will say as a backup, if Titus does get pulled away by either his job or through the internship program that he's working on, I do have a SQL lesson that I can do. So I've done it myself. I actually did my SQL lesson with the morning group. So if we do need to do that, I do have that backup. But after that, like I said, the dates are for everybody is on the thing. I think, is it Chang that's on Thursday, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Chang's Thursday. So we'll get to that. But everyone's good. I will see everyone tomorrow. Again, your challenge today, play with this. Start fiddling with it. Try making your own routes. Make your own routes that accept a certain object and accept certain income items, and make sure that you can accept all sorts of data. So can you accept URL queries? Can you accept dynamic routes? Can you do the items? So build them yourself. And what you want to do is challenge yourself to see, can I do it without watching the video? Did I remember the items enough to do it without the video, or do I have to watch the video? Really practice that. These are going to be core items. What you're learning now is more important than actually what I taught you. Well, kind of. What I taught you was good, is you need for the foundations to make sure you can code anything. But this is what you're going to be doing mostly in your jobs. This stuff here, the routing and the building of SpringBoot, is more of what you're going to be doing at the jobs that you get. So that's why this is very much important. Make sure you're taking the time to practice it and make sure it sticks. And if you have any problems, meet up with your classmates and practice together.